Hello, my loves. We are continuing this three-part podcast series with my beautiful friend and co-host, the mystical mindset coach, Kristine Freelund. So we are going to continue where we left off from last week. Enjoy. What does unity look like? Does that mean it's the end of duality? Like, what do you think that means? Like, I understand unity. I'm you, you're me, we're all one, we're all connected. um, you know, Literally, you guys were all connected. But does that also, is it a possibility that it ends duality?
I'm going to say no because it's actually the full love and acceptance of duality.
Okay, I like that.
It's going, we are complete opposites here, but I still understand where you're coming from.
I see your opposite. I understand your opposite, and I know that it
And
serves
I
a
honor it.
purpose. Yeah, because it
Yes.
does, honestly.
Yeah.
It does.
Right. And that's where that idea of stoicism kind of comes back in. And this is my interpretation of stoicism. I know there are stoic experts out there, right? But it's the idea that everything is the way it is, and there is divine perfection in that.
Yeah.
People go, well, how can you believe in that in a world of serial killers and everything else? Right. But there's this constant harmony, this constant balance that's trying to be met. And we have to start to take out a lot of what humanity has created, um, but also see that that is, in and of itself, a weird balancing act as well.
It
Right.
is,
It's physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
which is what karma is, just in case you
Yeah.
guys needed to really
So
know what
when
karma
even
is.
the idea of a superhero, even the idea of someone does good, well, what is that doing?
Mhm.
That means there's
We're
probably a
balance.
domino somewhere where there's a balancing of something that can be perceived as quote unquote bad or quote
Mhm.
unquote evil.
Yeah. And that's why I've always said the more light we have on the planet, the more darkness you will see.
Absolutely.
And the guides always used, I love this analogy because my favorite, but they've used it for like at least 4 or 5 years. They relate to it to a dimmer switch. You clean your whole house. Let's say you have a white kitchen. I love me a good white kitchen. White kitchen. Then you clean it and you turn the dimmer. Someone come by and hits that dimmer switch up a little bit, and all of a sudden you see dirt. You're like, shit, I just fucking cleaned this shit. It's like the dirt was always there. You just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So you clean that dirt up. And then someone goes by and hits that light up a little bit more. And you're like, dang, I didn't see that dirt either. So you clean it up. Like that's what we're doing right now. Since before 2020, let's be honest, but since 2020, that shit's gotten real intense. But that's what's happening. The light goes up a little bit and then we have a whole new layer to clean up. And so everything kind of pauses in that moment so we can see everything and we can clean it up. And then we're like, okay, we got our wits about us again. And then it's like, hey, let's kick that up a notch again. Let's do it again. But that's what's happening.
Yeah. Doesn't need to be cleaned though.
Well, that's an analogy.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, it's an analogy. And by clean it up, I mean like, clean it up in a sense of that's what we're kind of doing, right? We're
Becoming
cleaning
aware.
up the corruption. We're cleaning up, we're rebalancing the energy flow. So
Yeah.
it's just an analogy, but people
Okay.
understand it that way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's
But it's
very
about seeing
interesting.
something that was always there that you just weren't aware of before. And that's when the amount of light on the planet, that is what's happening and allowing us to see things that have been there and corrupt and whatever you want to call it for a very long time. It was always there.
Well, maybe even understanding the purpose of the quote unquote corruption, right? I always like to use vampires as the example,
I love me a good
right?
vampire.
Because what if a vampire was born? And this is like, I'm so not a Twilight fan, but
I
like,
am. And it's
are
freaking
you?
me out that you're even bringing up Twilight because Twilight is a sign for me. And so I'm a little freaked out right now because this is like the third one I've gotten.
All right. So I don't, was her name Bella?
Yeah.
Okay. And Bella actually gives birth to a baby vampire,
Yeah. Hybrid.
a hybrid. But now I'm going to go off script because I don't remember if this is actually what happened. If anyone saw a newborn baby starving, we would all be up in arms to feed it.
Yeah.
We would get baby formula. We would find someone that has extra breast milk. We would do anything and everything. What if there was a species that could only live off fear? What if there was a species that could only live off horror? why would we want to starve them? Why would we want to abuse something that is just trying to survive? Why couldn't we find harmony? Why couldn't we find a way for them to get the fuel, the energy that they need, but
Right.
do it in a harmonious way? And maybe it is. And that's why, like, okay, now I'm gonna jump over to Monsters Inc.
But
Right?
that movie is so spot on for where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is they're going to scare these kids, and the monster meets Boo, and Boo's so cute. And he realizes he doesn't want to scare her because he cares about her. But then when her laughter hits, this frequency of joy,
It's so much
right,
stronger.
almost breaks the meter. And that's the things that we can start to look at is the idea that, like, not that this is evil, but there's got to be a better way to fuel. There's got to be a better way to eat.
Yeah.
And we can see it in society. I don't resonate with this one, right? But the idea is like um cows are killing the planet, so we all need to we
That
need
is
to
the
stop.
dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Right. Meanwhile, we're going to go and we're going to farm soy and actually completely mutilate the soil.
Or
So
make complete fake food in a laboratory.
yeah, yeah. But it's this idea of like we can play with what would be a substitute that's going to work for, everyone,
Yeah.
that's going to benefit everyone. And people go, well, there's never going to be a scenario where everyone is happy.
Of course not. We're all different.
What if there is? What
I
if we
don't
just actually, many of us haven't experienced true happiness and we don't understand happiness?
I don't think anybody understands happiness. I'm just gonna say that. I mean, happiness is not, I just heard this the other day. Um, if the sun is constantly shining, you have a desert, right? Even the desert needs rain, right? Even the desert needs rain. So happiness, I think people attribute happiness to life being great and feeling good and all of these things. And you just can't live in that state on a continuous basis because high frequencies, um, it's like being plugged into an outlet. We are electrical beings. That's why the sun affects us. That's why the moon affects us. That's why electronics, affect us. We are electrical beings. And so if you are going to short circuit yourself, if you are constantly plugged into the highest frequency, you're going to burn out. You need that time to unplug and lower down. So I just think that sometimes we get caught up in what things mean, but I think it's a word and someone gave it a meaning, and we get to define what happiness is for each of us,
I like that.
or what sadness is, or what peace is.
It's all
And
in balance, right?
yeah,
Like it's the human experience itself, from how I understand it, is that we are here to experience every single emotional frequency possible,
yeah, it's the
from
planet of
life to
emotion.
death and everything. So we can't appreciate, and that is kind of the philosophy, as I understand it, behind the yin and the yang,
Yeah.
right? Is this idea that within one we come to enjoy the other. I love your analogy of the desert because I live in Arizona. And for anyone that knows, we had a record-breaking year of triple digits, right? This was the first year in that, I think I've been here 5 years now. Holy cow. Um, this was the first year I was over the sun. I was like, please. I mean, coming from Washington, every day was glorious. I was out in November in shorts and just like, this is amazing. And I can eat outside. And this year I was like, I'm fucking over it. I
I
am
need some
so,
clouds, bro.
yeah. What is a cold breeze? I don't remember. Everyone's pulling out their fall booties and their jackets. Tank top, right? It's only 77 today. We're finally in fall.
Dude, 2 days ago, it was still 99 in Houston.
So
Let me see what it is today because we had a little fall front come in. It's 78. I don't know, we got off topic. I don't remember what we were talking about.
we are in conspiracy theoryville.
Oh,
This is the most
happiness.
interesting podcast ever.
I know. I
I
told you
thought
we're
we were
going
going
to,
to talk about romantic
oh,
relationships,
we'll come back
dating.
to that.
No,
We'll
let's go
come.
into it. Would you date a different?
Oh, I
would,
like where you're going with this. Keep
would you
going.
date an alien? Would you date someone from a different planet or a
Fuck
different
yes.
dimension?
Fuck yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an alien so bad that I was like, I'm going to be an astronaut because then I'll get to them. And so I had for Christmas one year, I got the freeze dried astronaut food. Dude, I was obsessed. When you
Oh,
guys,
astronaut ice cream. I
yeah,
remember
do you
in
remember the
like
freeze
third
dried shit you
grade,
would just
and
eat?
all I wanted was astronaut ice cream.
I
It didn't
know.
matter, like screw having, I mean, Nintendo was what, like kindergarten, but like, yeah, screw having like a Sega Genesis or anything like
I
that. Like,
forgot I'm older
I,
than you. I was like, dang, I was a little older than kindergarten. Shh, Johanna, don't say it out loud.
yeah, astronaut ice cream is all I wanted because it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are
Really
like,
good.
when they look at my brand, I'm super out there, woo, galactic, but I'm also very down to earth. I'm kind of, all over the place. But I was obsessed with aliens. I used to run home to make sure I could catch Montel Williams, not Montel Jordan. I'm in my head somewhere else. Montel Williams, so that I could watch Sylvia Brown. I was a member of her I'm probably messing up this word, Gnostic or agnostic Christian church. Um, Back then we didn't have internet, so it was all by mail. I literally had to send mail in, and she would get this weekly church letter from her. Like, and I'm telling you, I was like 12, so I have been obsessed with all the things that I'm still obsessed with. And I didn't even know what the hell it was back then. I just knew that I was drawn to it. I knew that it was a part of who I was, without even knowing. But going back to what I did in Alien, yeah. But on a in a way, I feel like that's what I'm doing right now, because I am no longer judging a person I meet online based upon their profile picture. Like, to me, it's no more about looks. It's no more about what my type is. Because let's be honest, my type is a walking red flag. It is a man who's 6'2", 250 pounds, who can manhandle me. He's got tattoos, dark hair, blue eyes, probably has an attitude. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing? So I'm now like looking at everybody and going, it doesn't really, yes, there needs to be some attraction, but I'm going outside of my types, and I'm just dating anyone at this point, just because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get to know you, meet you. If it clicks, it clicks. But I
I
have to get out of that whole egoic, persona of where I was kind of shallow for a while. I'm gonna admit it.
I am such a firm believer that a type is a trauma response.
Fuck yeah.
That's all. There is no such thing as type. Type is a trauma response where I feel this feels familiar, this feels good, right? And for most of us, let's be honest, we've all been traumatized by relationships, right? And so when we're doing this, yeah, there is this attraction to these things. Now, do I want a man that's physically attractive? Absolutely.
Sure, why not?
I definitely do. But do I have a type? No.
I do. I mean, yeah, I like the bad boy, but right now, and I've been this way most of my life too. I mean, I dated a guy in high school that looked like Clay Walker, the country singer. I've been chasing cowboys my whole damn life. But the reason why I'm so drawn to them is because a lot of them are very earthy. They're outdoorsmen. They like to hunt. They like to be outdoors. They like very grounded. They're very protective. That's the kind of energy that I want in my relationship. I don't, and I have dated men who are similar to me, not equal to me. Not that there's a hierarchy, but they're playing in the woo energy, right? They're new and the thing. It ain't for me. A lot of them are very feminine, and no offense
Because
if
they're
you're
in their
listening.
divine feminine energy typically when they're
I,
starting their
I'm here to heal my divine feminine. I need a man who's in his divine masculine. And I have that is what if we go out and I went on a date. He was a super nice guy, but he hugged me like I was a damn porcelain doll that was about to crack into 1,000 pieces. And I legit said to him, I was like, if we go on another date, you have to hug me. Like, I'm not gonna break. If anybody, I am not gonna break. Okay, okay, okay. The next day, oh, it was
same
like a
thing.
little bit more. I was like, this ain't gonna work. But that's okay, because I know what I need and what I want. But it is still a trauma response, because I, and this isn't a bad thing to want. I don't necessarily need a man's financial support, but I do need the emotional safety. For a woman to be in her divine feminine, I believe that there needs to be a level of emotion. There has to be emotional safety. So if
Emotional
you're,
safety and accountability and
yeah,
integrity.
yes, if you're not strong enough to project that and create that where we can let go, of our masculine responsibilities and relax knowing that we're safe, then we're not going to be in our feminine. And so what I learned coming back to this guy that shattered my heart in a million pieces, when I was with him, because I felt like I was falling in love with him. But what I was really doing was falling in love with who I was with him. And
Yes.
that's what you're really doing. You're really falling in love with who you are. That's why you fall in and out of love, because you're like, I don't like the way I am with you. So then you don't, love them anymore. But when I was with him, I was so in my feminine. Like he would pick me up and put me around his waist and wrap my arms, legs around his and carry me around the pool. He would feed me water, like he'd give the straw and put it in my mouth. He always, if we went to a restaurant and I would say, I like my Don Julio, I'd say Don Julio and water and lime. That's my drink. They didn't have it. He's like, nope, let's go. We'll go to another restaurant. Let's find, you need to have, I'm like, no, I can just not drink. He's like, no, 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 no.
I
Your needs
like
have to be
that.
met. So like everything we did and how like he lived 2 hours from me. He drove up here. I was like, oh, I'll meet you first date. He's like, no, ma'am, we don't do that here. I will drive up and go to your door. And I was like, okay, I'm down. And that is why it was so shattering to me, because that's like, how do I be that without that divine masculine counterpart? It's not easy. How do you be in your divine feminine in that way when you don't have the masculine holding it?
Practice.
Do you have answers for me?
Practice, practice, practice,
Give
practice.
me an example of how to practice that.
If I'm out in public, so there's this weird thing, and I can't think of the word. There's expectation,
Oh, God, that word.
and then we're going to say illusion. If I am out in public and I am truly in my divine feminine energy, I don't open doors.
Do you just stand in front of the door waiting for someone to open it for you?
You don't have to wait. The expectation is there and it will happen,
Okay. I do get that a lot. I rarely open my own door anywhere I go.
right? And then what do? Divine feminine is gracious. Divine
Yes.
feminine, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is an expectation? Yeah. Does a man really need to thank you for opening a door? Yes.
No, they do. I'm telling you, men need to be appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men need to be
And so
appreciated.
that's step one is I'm Kristine, I'm at work all day. I kick ass. I do this. What am I going to do? Step into gratitude. Start taking those gratitude exercises and amp them the fuck up.
Yeah.
So I go through something with my clients. I call it the 369 model. I know there's other people that have 369 models, but it's every morning I'm going to wake up, I'm going to grab a pen. Best practice is to write it down. Partial credit if you say it out loud or sing it or do anything or text it, right? But when we're handwriting, we're actually going into mudras.
Yeah. Very true.
Okay. Even if like I think I wrote like this as a child or something, right? There's still connectivity between these meridians, between these energetic channels. So we're already actually rewiring on a deeper level neurologically.
Yeah.
Whether or not science will back me up on that, they can fuck off. So we're going into these
Yeah.
circuits, right? But what science has proven is that when we actually write things down, there are particular regions of the brain that light up that only light up in handwriting, not in
Oh.
no,
So wait, say that again. Say that again.
there are particular regions of the brain that light up in harmony together when we are writing things down,
Okay. I like that.
right? We're going into the temporal lobe and I believe the prefrontal cortex. And when these two areas work together, one thing that we're going into is areas that are associated with long-term memory. Now, if we actually go into the idea that time doesn't exist, what we're writing down is only in the present. So we should
I'm the
always write
queen
things
of
down.
I'm the queen of time doesn't exist.
Yeah, right? Now, can we use Chronos to our advantage in this moment? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I may start writing down things that I'm grateful for. Now, here's step one. I always go good, better, best. One of the certifications that I went into is Spring Forest Qigong, and it's Grandmaster Chu Lin. And he had two, I mean, he taught me so much, and I am so grateful for his existence. But there were two pieces, right? This philosophy of good, better, best. You're only doing good, better, best. There is no stepping backwards. When you're
Yeah.
taking and you make a mistake, you did good. You did what you thought was best at the moment. Okay, good, better,
Exactly.
best. But
Yeah.
anyway, and the other was no banana left behind, which I'll talk about another time. But best practice is always going to be to write it down. Now, we're going to go good. This is to start out with. This is if you're really struggling to get into your feminine energy,
Okay.
right? I'm going to write down 3 things in the morning that I'm grateful for. So maybe I'm having a shit day and maybe I'm just grateful for the hot water in the shower. And maybe I'm grateful for the coffee that I'm sipping. But the third one third always has to be you sending gratitude back to yourself.
Okay.
Because typically when we're not in our feminine energy, it's because there's resentment and things that
So
we
what does that look like?
dissolved with. I am so grateful for my open heart.
Ooh, I like that one.
Okay. Afternoon comes, alarm goes off on my phone because I'm a big time boxing person. Now I'm writing down 6 things that I'm grateful for. So I can. Maybe I'm still grateful for the hot water. Maybe I'm
You
still
can
grateful
repeat
for the
them?
coffee, right?
You can
And
repeat them?
yeah, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because what we're doing is we're actually stepping into the emotional frequency, not
Yeah.
the words. Okay. It's the action behind it. Because the more I think about it, right? And Abraham Hicks, I think it is, talks about I call it the 6 second rule. If I can stay in an emotional frequency for 6 seconds, if I can stay in the feeling of a thought, supportive thoughts are going to come. We call these
Yeah.
thought worms,
Yeah.
right? But so okay, so I'm grateful for my shower. I'm grateful for my coffee. You know what? I got to take a little walk, maybe even just on the way to work. The sun hit my face and it felt so glorious. I'm grateful for clean clothes in my closet. And so, okay, so now we're getting into it. But now again, I have to send it back to myself. So now I'm going to say, maybe I'm still grateful for my open heart, but maybe I'm also grateful for the fact that I speak up for my coworkers. Ooh, powerful bitch, what's going on? Right. So again, one third is coming back. Now we're going to
Yeah.
go into evening and it's going to be 9 things. And if you can stay consistent on this, we're going to start to switch things. Now it's going to be one of those things is the present moment. One of those things is something that you're grateful for that hasn't arrived in the third dimension yet. Right. And one of those things is grateful back to me. So now we're going into better. And now we're starting to speak into existence the gratitude behind things that we know are already on their way, which is literally the equivalent of I ordered that pizza from that server and I'm so excited for it. I can't wait. I know it's going to taste delicious. And
Yeah.
because I ordered it, I know without like maybe there's this much doubt, right? That pizza is going to come out. It's like I was at Spinato's last week and they have a chicken crust pizza. So if you're like a zero carb girl, it's fucking delicious. And they had
I'm
this,
so jealous you have that.
oh my God, this pizza had gold flake on top. Okay.
Good Lord.
Like,
You're
here's
making
my
me
poor
hungry. I'm
ass.
fasting right now.
My God. And it has like nduja and roasted tomatoes and fresh basil. And they did like a balsamic drizzle over it. So it was like this spicy juxtaposition of sweet. It was hitting everything. But the first pizza comes out. It's gorgeous. I take a picture because it's so stunning. I take a bite. It's gluten-free crust. Mm. Not going to make me super sick, but I'm trying to go no carbs. So I had to send it back. Right. But even when I sent it back, I knew the right pizza was going to come out.
Yeah.
She boxed up the other one and I got a free pizza.
Sweet. But you ate that thing too.
I sure did. I
Ah,
sure did. Yeah, but right. So when we're experiencing gratitude on an advanced level, so maybe you've done this for like 21 days, maybe you've done this for 67 days, maybe you're like, I've done this for 3 days and I'm ready to step up. Now I'm going to start to give gratitude for things that I know are on their way to me. So what would you be grateful for today? The love of your life,
well, so
harmonious relationship.
my thing is, yeah, I mean, I would be grateful for um feeling safe enough to be myself, all of myself, right? To be playful, to be supported. Um, I don't know, it feels free to me. So I speak more in sensation and energy than that way. So for me, it's like if I can feel it in my body, not as an emotion, because emotions aren't real, sensations are real. If I can feel a sensation in my body when I think about being with my partner and how relaxed I feel in my body and how safe I feel and how free and open and flowy I feel, that tells me that that already exists. It's not that I need it to come in. I already know it's already happened. It's already real. It's just a matter of me aligning to it. And so I try to stay in that for at least 30 seconds because there's a it takes 30 seconds between the mind and the body to connect. So like think about when you're working out, your muscles start to freak out. It takes 30 seconds for your muscle to go, oh, it's safe. and to receive and to relax into the energy. It's no different when you're feeling a sensation in your body. So I try to hold it for at least 30 seconds. But that's what I envision. I envision how at peace I feel, how safe I feel, how playful I feel, how lighthearted. That's what I would be grateful for. I'd be grateful for just the simplest things.
Okay. Dr. Joseph Skogna calls emotions electricity in motion,
Yeah,
right?
energy in motion.
Bioelectric being, what we're doing is actually sending signals out when emotions are present. And
Yeah.
so I have a combination of four that I'm always listening for in people's voices. As you know, I read voices,
Yeah.
right? And it's happiness, joy, excitement, and pride. When we are building a huge future, that's what I want to hear. So
Yeah.
I sometimes will challenge a client when they're doing really good with this gratitude exercise. Go delusional on what you're grateful for.
Oh, delusion is that's the jam, dude. You have to be delusional.
Yeah, right? So maybe I don't want to say anything that I don't actually want.
Let's talk about this for a second though, because I talk about this in recalibration experience where it's like we think we know what we want.
No.
And there's a reason for that, right? You think that you want the house, the spouse, the wealth, the health, the whatever, because if you get that, it's going to make you feel a certain way.
Mhm.
And I'm very open about it in my course where I talk about how I want you to focus on the life you desire to have. And the reason I tell them it's the carrot that's dangling, that's calling you towards it. You're going to move forward and you're going to go on this process of doing this practice daily because you are going towards a desire, right? But what happens is the more repetition you do this, you start to feel those feelings without having the things. And that's the whole point of being the change or embodying the frequency is then it shows up. But what happens is when it shows up, a lot of times, and this is what happened to me, I was like, yeah, yeah, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Here I
Oh,
am feeling the feelings, but I was like, that ain't it. That ain't it. And I was like, dang. And I kind of was like, well, that sucks. And then I had to really ask myself, what do I want? Now, here's the kicker with me. I'm down to do just about anything. Do I want the quiet ranch life out in the country where I'm writing my books and doing my podcast and living a more reserved life and help mentoring people and just living with my animals and country? 1000%. Could I also go back to being a gypsy and travel the world and still pull back energetically from the world, as in still writing my books, mentoring? Yeah. And so it's hard for me to go. A lot of times they say you have to be really clear about what you want. I'm never clear about what I want. It can be so many things. Now, I will say within that, the constant is I want to write, mentor, and do my podcast. That's where I want to stay focused. I don't want to be out in the limelight so much anymore. So there's the constant. How, I guess, what's your take on that? The thing around it, because that's what can shift and change. Because I think I will always travel. I am a gypsy at heart. So it's weird for me because I'm like, now would I ever go back to being in a city in an apartment? That's a hard no.
okay. There's a few themes, right? Number one is the if when program. So when those individuals find it hard to go, I actually don't know what I want. I'm not talking about you in this case,
Yeah.
right? It's the idea that, well, if I had the dream job or if I had the dream partner, then my life would be good and then I'd be allowed to be happy. So
Yes,
it's the
exactly.
happiness blocker, right?
Yeah.
If when programming is like, that's where we need to start very
Yeah.
quickly. Another thing that happens from my experience working with over 2,000 individuals is a lot of times we're working with neurodivergence, those that whether they've been formally diagnosed or just have an inkling, they might be on the autism or ADHD spectrum. And so there's something in NLP that we really call parts integration that we can go into. And the thing is, I believe that the neurodivergent brain is an evolved brain over the neurotypical. We think different, we
Yeah.
communicate different, we have a million tabs open. So there is a part of me that absolutely wants to be a happy housewife. Okay. There's another part of me that wants to be rich and famous on my own. parts integration is something where we can actually go, okay, these seem like two very different versions of Kristine, but what
Yeah,
do they have in common?
right.
Do they both want Kristine to be happy? Yes. Do they both want Kristine to be healthy? These are really dumb examples, right? Yes. We start to find that one thread of commonality that they both can truly be in, that they're not battling over. And now
Right.
that's going to be the goal. That's what I'm going to envision as I kind of go into meditation, is starting with that piece. And once they're integrated in, then I have a little more clarity.
Yeah.
So you can absolutely desire things that seem completely opposite, and I guarantee you they're not, right? So it's
Yeah.
let's try that again. It's going into that idea of duality being um, impossible, when in fact everything is just a loop. It's a ring, right? We're
Yeah,
just taking these two
exactly.
ends and we're connecting them together. We're going, okay, yep, no, that is exactly what I want. So you're allowed to do it. And I do that a lot with houses, right? Even last night with the full, well, okay, full moons today, but I was doing a little full moon meditation and I'm like, where do I want to live, right? Like, I want oceanfront property. I want this. I want turquoise waters. But you know what else I want? I want a house in Arizona. Am I allowed to have it all? The answer is yes. In this particular meditation, am I going to focus on my beautiful desert abode? Yes. Does that take away from the oceanfront property in Curacao? No. I don't actually want Curacao, but um, you are allowed to have these. And so the piece really is, and you really hit it, right? The sensations in the body. When I think of this, does it feel good? Do these sensations feel welcoming?
Yeah.
Maybe there is a little bit of nerves, right? Because fear and excitement are very closely related in emotional
So,
frequency.
they're the same bandwidth. Honestly, it's just one side or the other.
Yeah. So maybe I do want to step into it, but I can sit there and I can really go into the sensations of having this and how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel completely safe. I'm going to feel in awe of the gorgeous sunrises and sunsets that I can
Yeah.
see, right? Overlooking the giant saguaro cactus with my pool and my hot tub. And then the big piece that I went off on was like, I don't want to fucking take care of that shit. I could barely stay on
Same.
top of a two-bedroom place. So why do I want six bedrooms? Oh, well, you know what? I'm gonna have staff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have people to take care of it. As a matter of fact, there is whatever, we'll call him Bob right now, cleaning the pool, right? Hi, Bob. Oh, I feel so safe around Bob. Like the sensation and going into it. I don't know if I answered your question. There was one other piece I wanted to pull in. When if programming. Shit. Apparently it's not meant to be talked about, or it's going to come up and I'm gonna be like, oh, that's what it
It'll
was.
come back around. But I'm glad you brought that up though, because I've studied NLP. I do parts work as well, and that is a really good way of doing that, is finding that common thread. And that is the common thread for me. That's why I said, like, this is the common thread. So I know what I want to be doing. Where or how I do it can shift and change. But the thing that I always come back to is I want to be in a peaceful environment. I
Yeah,
want to be in a relaxed, stable environment. So like if I was to go back nomad life, it would have to be like in, um, honestly, it'd probably have to be in a travel trailer, because I want more space than a van or a car. I want something that is my home on wheels. I do want the structure of a home, and it can come with me. Or I could have the big house. I also want water. It could be oceanfront or it can be a lake. But the problem with oceanfront is I want property. And that's a little more challenging to come by, right? But the same thing. I was talking to a man the other day, and a couple of them actually. And we ended up on the concept that I want farm animals. And he's like, but you still want to travel? I said, yeah. I said, I'm not going to be the one caring for my animals every day. Will I go out there and hug them every day and talk to them and play with them and love on them? You fucking bet your ass I will. Am
yeah,
I the one going to be out there shoveling the shit every day and feeding them every day? Probably not. I mean, occasionally there's nothing wrong with that. And I love me some good, hard, farm work. But am I going to be doing it on an everyday basis? No. I will have staff, not just people that come in when I travel. They will be there. They will be family. They will sit down with me at Thanksgiving. They're going to be a part of my family. And
yeah,
like, I'm not going to go and get cows and chickens and peacocks and raccoons. Yes, I'm going to have a misfit farm, and chickens, without someone who's going to take care of them.
yeah.
It's just
right?
not
But
going to
the
happen.
ego is so quick to be like, oh, I can't have that because, right? Like I want to be on tour. I want to do all this. Oh, well, I don't actually want to work full time. Who said you have to work full time?
Right. Could
Who
work
said that you're
3
not
months
on
out of the
TV?
year.
Exactly. Maybe it's only 2 weeks out of the year. Maybe people pay immense amounts because they know how rare it is to see me in person,
Right.
right? And then I'm in Bali for a month. Like we can create reality in any way we want. And the
Yeah.
beauty of doing this work is write down the limiting beliefs when they come up, right? The idea, oh, I can never be in a happy relationship because no man would ever want a woman that's traveling this much. Ooh, where the hell did that come from? Let's jot it down,
Yeah.
right? Because then what we can do is start to go into those lists of 100. So one thing that I want now is a man that completely trusts me. Maybe I want a man that's also a jet setter that's actually going to come with me,
Yeah.
right? The limitations are such beautiful gifts because it's just allowing us to start to rewire the brain towards true creation.
Yeah. Mine was always I'm too much. I'm too much. But one, because I have a big field, an energy field in my whole life, even as a kid, before I understood any of that. I would walk into a room or space and everybody would turn their head and look at me. Everybody would want me to talk when I was like, I don't really have anything to say. Like, why are y'all looking at me? Like, I didn't even do anything. Like, or they would get intimidated. And I would feel like I was the one who was intimidating until I realized, no, they're intimidated. It's not, I'm just being here. I'm not doing anything. And so I had that my whole life. I struggled with that. And then in relationship, I'm either not enough or I'm too much. And the too much got worse when I went through my awakening because, well, now I really am too much for most people. It's hard to
Right.
find someone that can hold what I have. And for a long time, I let it really get to me. And there was a lot of shame that I was the problem, something wrong with me, and try to hide my spirituality or my crazy or my woo. And I'm like, the other day I was on a date. I was like, said something about crazy. I said, I'm crazy. I said, I'm crazy in all the best ways, though. Like, I'm not going to go slash your tires crazy, but I am crazy. And I would not want to be any other way. But I've learned to watch when I find myself tapering myself down.
Mhm.
And I just don't necessarily think it's a bad thing in the beginning because you don't want to walk in a date and go open your suitcase and dump it all out at the same time. But I've also realized that it's okay to be too much right away because I'm going to find real fast who can hold my energy and who can't. And to be okay with that. Because after everything happened with that guy that shattered my heart, I'll tell you what, like it did something to me. And I was just like, I don't, like I don't want, I don't want to play this game anymore. I want to be not wide open energetically, but I'm going to be wide open as to who I am from the get-go. And I'm going to be okay if you walk away, because it's not about if you like me. It's if, do I like you? Can you hold my energy? Otherwise, this ain't gonna work. And then 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, I'm gonna not like you. I don't want to do that again.
Mhm.
And so there's dating is challenging right now for me because, and I have also been called to get off the dating apps. You were the second. So I followed the flow of synchronicity, right? You're the second time I've heard that today. But
Hunt yourself. Allow yourself to be hunted. Allow yourself to be chased.
I'm
Allow
like, where the
yourself
hell am
to
I
be.
going to find this person? But here's another thing that's coming up for me. I've been called to go back to church.
Oh, I love church.
But not so I am talking to a man right now who is very Christian. And he knows what I do. He knows everything. But even before him, there was a lot of this energy coming up. Now, is it a Christian church? No, a unity church. Those are prosperity churches. They're more spiritually based. I'd
Okay.
go to agnostic Christian church as well. I just don't follow the rules of religion, but I have respect for all religions. I just don't follow the rules of them. But I've been called to go back to church. And then I also was being called to really get out into the community. And I found randomly this Facebook group showed up of find your tribe, women, find your tribe in the woodlands. And I live in the woodlands, Texas. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so Sunday I'm going paddleboarding with a bunch of women I don't even know, you know? So I just feel this call to get out there and not like in the bars necessarily, because those are fun people too, don't get me wrong. But it's just to do other things. So maybe that's where I'm gonna, find somebody, but I don't know. It's fun to play with people on the dating apps too. Just have to admit that. You meet some interesting people.
A really incredible and highly successful dating coach told me that the dating apps are for practice. The dating apps are for figuring out exactly what you want. It's for going to
Yeah.
dinner. It's not for searching for your end all be all, but
Yeah.
it's going, okay, here's the list I put together. This man meets the criteria. How do we
Yeah.
vibe? And then
Yeah.
adjusting and tweaking the list and
That's
tweaking,
exactly how I've used it.
right? And I think that's so beautiful. For church, my rude awakening had a lot to do with church. I was in massive meditation, and there were two pastors at the church I was going to at the time. In one, I would be scribing at that point. I was writing down whole things, right? I was also told to burn them at one point. Thank God my husband at the time was very supportive. Um, but he would read through them, we would discuss it. We would go to church, we'd sit down, and literally that pastor was saying word for word the shit that I had just told my husband an hour before. And we would look at each other and be like,
That's cool.
whoa,
I
right?
like that.
Then there was the other pastor whose eyes would go completely black. Okay.
Reptilian. Yeah.
Or receiving and not realizing he was a receiver,
Yeah.
right? Taken over.
Yeah. Trans channel. I'm a trans channel. I've let beings take me over, but you have to have such a high level of discernment and control of your energy field to allow that to happen. And people who don't, that's the scary thing. Just like when
Yeah.
you drink too much and you black out, someone else is taking your body for a ride.
Yes. And I had a very clear message to never be in a room alone with him.
Yeah.
So they brought in a Salvador Dali painting called Christ of St. John of the Cross. And you could go after hours, it was in the pastoral office, and look at it. And when I tell you that this painting unlocked millions of memories of past
That's
lives and
cool.
many other
That's so
things,
cool.
it was there, right? But I was like coordinating when I could be there when he wouldn't be there. Because I didn't want to run into him because I knew
Yeah.
that that particular, I'll call it a demon that was remote controlling him at that moment,
Yeah.
knew me and was looking for a conversation with me. This was
Yeah.
also the time where I was literally like my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, I'd be like, we got to go deliver a message. Right. And he'd be like, okay, jump in the truck. And he would drive. And literally, I would just go off the buzz in my third eye. And I'd be like, take a left here, take it right there. I'd go into a diner, I'd sit down at a table with all these people and I'd deliver a message. And it made sense. And they got it and they were thankful. And I got up and left. And it would be somewhere else. And there was even one time where it was a dark and stormy night. I'm dead serious. It really was. And we ended up in front of this very large house that was shaped more like a castle. And all of the lights were off, but candles were lit, real candles were lit in the windows. And as we stopped, and I said, this is where I'm supposed to be, but I had just fear strike through my entire body. And I was like, if I go in, I'm not coming out. And right then the front door opened. And I was like, let's go.
Shut the front door. Are you serious?
Dead serious. Dead serious.
Dude, that is wild.
Right. I've had many invitations into situations I chose not to step into, but I do, yeah, right. Um,
You know who that we know in common. You know she's draconian, right? Yeah. So we were together and I kept hearing draconian, draconian, draconian. I looked at her and I said, why do I keep hearing draconian every time I walk by her? And she went, I'm like, yeah, I see you.
yeah,
I ain't stupid. And let me be clear about this too. Reptilian, draconian, all that. It doesn't mean that they're all evil.
no, not at
No,
all.
we have different frequency. People, there's different dimensional beings. Every dimension has a different frequency. There are plenty of reptilians that are for the light. And for me, darkness means void of light. It doesn't necessarily mean evil. It just means void of light. And and so, I do believe that there are species within that are. I think she was kind of in the middle, though I'm not going to say she was one extreme or another. But uh, it's you have to listen to that, even when it doesn't make sense. Like you know, when you know something, and I've been that way too. It's like you have to listen to your gut and reconcile it later. You don't have, you're never going to have necessarily the knowing in that moment what's wrong. You just know. You meet someone, you're like,
Trust
your,
it.
your vibe's like, this isn't the person.
Let's talk about
You gotta walk, you have to walk away in that moment.
And let's talk about that in the dating world. Like, I don't care what it is. If you get that funny feeling on the first date, get up and walk out.
Do
If you
it.
feel like, oh my God, it's just because he's chewing with his mouth open. No, it's more than him chewing with his mouth open. Your entire system, your intuition is saying something is off, and that
Yeah.
means run. And I know some girls will go, oh, well, then I'll never date. Good. Then go fucking work on
Well,
yourself.
you're obviously attracting the wrong ones if that's the case.
Exactly.
But this is a good point, and we talked about this before, but we're gonna so I went on a date with this guy, and he seemed very self-aware. We talked on the phone a lot. He was a truck driver, long haul truck driver. And anyway, we had really good self-aware conversation, blah blah, but there was something about him I could not put my finger on. I'm like, something ain't right with this guy. I can't quite articulate it. And so I was honestly curious, and so I kept talking to him until we met in person. Because in person, then I really usually get a better understanding. But he had weird humor and he'd say these little things. And I was very aware and observing and was watching him. So anyway, we met. He was late to the date because there was a fatality on the freeway. So he's about 20 minutes late. I met him at the bar. We had dinner. He was very nice dinner. He showed up not dressed well. Baggy jeans and a white t-shirt. That is not my vibe. Like first date, I don't care if it's a Mexican restaurant or a hole in the wall, dress nice. You know, dress to impress. So I was already kind of like, I don't like dating men who are kind of slobbish like that. And so I'm just watching and observing and whatever. We had a nice time. He got very touchy with me right away. And when he touched me, I noticed I didn't have a great feeling about it, you know, but it wasn't ick. It was just, again, something wasn't right. So I go home. Everybody's like, how was your day? I was like, it's okay. And then I get a text message from him. And I pull it up because I need to read it. And it was the next day. He said, I'm sorry and mad at myself for last night. I said, I don't understand why you're so upset. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could control. Me thinking this is about him being late because we actually had a little bet who was going to get there earlier, you know, because he's like, oh, I'm always on time. Anyway. And he goes, no, not that. I paid $46, including the tip, and did not collect $23 from you in money or trade. I'm very upset I didn't catch that. So you owe me that in whatever way you decide to settle that balance, young lady. And he has a laughing emoji. And I wrote, oh, just oh. And I'm thinking had a weird sense of humor anyway. And I'm thinking, I think he's trying to be funny, but I really am not vibing with this kind of funny. Like, this isn't funny to me.
Oh,
And then he sends the last message. You know the deal, right? Ass, cash, or grass, sweetheart, with a winky face. Ugh,
goodbye.
block. I didn't even say a word to him. Not one peep. I was like, no, my block game is real strong with this one. Just straight blocked him. And I was like, you know what? Read, you know, this is just confirming my intuition is telling me this man was seeing how far he could push, see how far what he could get away with. And I was like, no, this isn't. And I'm not even going to give you an opportunity to try to manipulate your way out of it. I'm just going to block you.
Right. Yeah. I have a very morbid sense of humor, but there is a difference between a morbid sense of humor and the idea of like saying kind of fucked up abusive things and being like, oh, it was just a joke.
Because it's not just a joke.
No.
And a lot of passive aggressive men use humor as a way to say what they want to say and get away with it. And my ex-husband was that way. I'm not down with it. Say what you mean what you say.
Yeah.
No, we can all joke. That's fine. But know the time and the place. And the energy in which it's coming from is going to tell me everything I need to know.
Mm-hmm. I can't. Yeah.
This is the first, honestly, that's the first experience in dating I've had where it was like that, where I've ever
Really?
had to block somebody. Like, I don't get, I've gotten one dick pic, and it was from a guy I knew I went to fucking school with from elementary school on. He found me on the dating app, and he's like, that was his message to me. Did you go to Rio's Canyon Elementary? I was like, what in the hell? Like, my face has never changed. People will see me from 30 years ago and know my name. And I'll be like, who are you? You know, I still look the same. And so we met up a few times, and then I was out of state and he sent me one. And I was like, well, you just killed any chance of that because that's not happening.
Like, bye-bye.
But honestly, other than that, on the dating apps, I've had extremely good luck. And I hear all these horror stories from women and men, even about people not looking like their photos, or, just getting these baited on sending nude photos and pictures. Like, I really haven't had that experience. I'm very grateful for that. But I also think it has a lot to do with who I am and what I put out there, and my intention and the energy that I hold as well.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I have received my fair share of dick pics, and it hasn't happened in a very long time. But I recently heard a woman say she just immediately sends a Venmo for $25 anytime a dick pic is sent.
I love that.
And I was like, that's brilliant. And
Hell
apparently
to
she
the
has
yeah.
one guy that she talks to that really he feels good about it. He gets off on it. So he literally sends her dick pics and just pays every single time. And I'm like, okay, I could be okay with sorry. But I was like,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't have to look at it. If you
right?
want to send them, I'll just go delete. Where's my money?
Right? But like, yeah, it's such a weird thing. And there's been research around why men feel like doing that.
I
But
would love
there's
to see
really
this research.
there's two trains of thought. There's the one that they're, and I always forget which one it is, sadomasochistic or whatever it is. Um, they want to be humiliated.
So they send a picture because they want to be
They want to be
humiliated.
shamed. And then there's the other where okay, there's three, right? There's the ones that it's just like really kind of it's abusive and violent towards women, and this is a big sign. There's a sadomasochistic where they do want to be actually shamed, and then the other where they just and this is such a horrible excuse, and this is where I laughed and closed out of the article, was the idea that men are very show and tellish. They feel like if they send a dick pic, like now you're gonna send something back. It's transactional. They
That
really
also shows their emotional maturity.
100%. 100%. Right? Um, I don't remember where I was going with that anyway.
It's just, it's just a trip to me. But it's,
Oh yeah, and it's a matter of like where are your settings at and everything else, right?
yeah,
Like if you are there and you're like, headline dating with intention and I'm only looking for marriage and everything else, and the guy sends a dick pic, you're like, okay, bye-bye.
yeah.
Right? It's a very quick way. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about dating apps is people a lot of times they feel so comfortable online, they are quick to show their shadow self. Not
Key,
necessarily their quote unquote
keyboard warriors, that's what I
colors.
call them. They feel so safe because they're not in front of you.
Yeah,
They can be more vulnerable.
right. But one thing that's really funny too is like, well, I think most of us women, when we're dating or even considering it, or even when you're working with clients one on one, we all have background check information. And we can easily look up your phone number, right? And know
But,
exactly who you
Cash
are.
App or Venmo, one of those is the best way to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I go through an entirely different system. And it is
Well,
like,
you can pay for a service too.
yeah,
Yeah.
or I will know every property you've owned in the past
Yeah.
20 years.
So I went out with an older gentleman for a couple of dates, and he was ex-military. He retired from the military, and he had access to some app that he still used. And we were sitting at the restaurant. We were at the bar waiting for our table or something, and he starts rattling off like my first marriage last name and these properties and this and that. And I'm like, I thought I was the psychic one here. What the fuck is going on? And I was like, oh, you just did a background check on me. He's like, pretty much. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
So the last ex-boyfriend that you met, who we won't mention by name, there was another man that was interested in me that ran a background check on him.
He what?
Hmm.
He wanted you that much? He's like, let me check this guy out.
Hmm.
Well, what did he find?
Um,
Obviously nothing that derailed you because you were with him for a while.
nothing that derailed me too far. Were there some things that were questionable? Yeah. Did those questionable things end up coming to light even more later in the relationship? Yes. Was that man filled with guilt and shame around those things? Yes.
People are not, well, listen, we are not our past.
Exactly.
We are not our past. And so I think everybody needs grace with that as well, because I mean, I've been married 3 times. When it comes that to me, that's a red flag, you know? But at the same time, I always say, like, listen, I believe in marriage. I'm meant to be a wife. I don't know how to be a girlfriend. I am a wife. I walk into the relationship as a wife, and it's probably not always the best thing, but I do. And I would get married again. And I was very unaware of the pattern I was running that was inner child wounds, until I wasn't. My third husband, that pattern became crystal clear. And I understood why I married 2 out of the 3 were like 2 of them were the exact same men, and the ones that I was engaged 2 times before that, they were all the same guy that looked a little bit different. They all ran the same thing. And it was like, oh my God. And let me just tell you, once you see something, like once you see your pattern, I wrote about this pattern in my new book. It's hard to look at sometimes because you go, I was in my no, I think I was 40 when I figured out the pattern. I looked at that and went, oh my God, how did I not see this? The pattern was so obvious. And it took me a good like week or two to digest. Because, like, they say the only way to break denial is to realize you were in denial in the first place. Otherwise, if you try to pull someone out of denial, you only push them further into denial. And when that denial broke, it was like, oh my God, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
Okay, so maybe there is a type that I have that I've realized.
What's that?
Mama's boy.
Has a mama wound?
Mama's boy is a mama's wound.
Interesting.
A mama's boy is always a mother wound. Always.
So the guy that shattered my heart was a mama's boy. Well, I say that because his mom was kind of, I don't want to say overbearing, but like, they talked every day on the phone. Like, she checked up on him constantly.
Was she divorced?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's the only boy in the family. He had 2 sisters.
So he more than likely had to step up at a young age and become the man of the house.
But I don't remember, I don't think he was young when that happened. So his biological father was never in the picture and left, abandoned him. Him and I had very similar stories, except it was his father as my mother.
Mhm.
And our stories our past is crazy similar, other than the abuse. But he was 18 when he found out that the guy raising him was not his father.
Sure.
But yeah, he was the sisters. He had 2 sisters and a mom, and at some level, he was also short. So up until even through high school, he was like 5'1" or something. He was very small, and then after he shot up to 5'6", like it's probably the shortest guy I've ever dated. But I think that kind of gave him a complex too. Like, he had to be this big, tough, burly guy to compensate. But I've been trying to, even when I was dating him, I knew how his mom was, and he was like, I'm gonna buy my mom a car for Christmas, and I'm gonna do this, and he takes care, and mom lives at the house, even though she has her own house most of the time. And I'm like, what
Red
is his
flag. Red
wound?
flag. Red flag. Red flag. Red flag.
Right. And I'm like, what? And now she moved in after his last major his last marriage ended, and whatever. But I saw all that, and I knew, I'm like, there's a mommy wound here, but I could never figure out what it was. And obviously I'm not going to know now. Um, because he didn't, most of the time when I see somebody with a mom wound, my ex-husband had a mom wound. They want you to mother them. They want you to take care of them. He did not want that.
I would agree with that, but I would also say on one level or another, the mama's boy patterning that I've seen is that typically they had to hold emotional space for an emotionally mature mother who didn't know how to process her anger, frustration, and rage about the abandonment and rejection that she was experiencing from men her own age. So they learn to mask when they think they're going to disappoint women.
Mm, that hit a nerve.
And that
I
was,
also think for him in particular, I think he was in his because you gotta remember when we're children, I talked about this in my book that I'm writing. A child acts a certain way, and a parent doesn't really see a problem with it. They don't see anything wrong, but there's something inside of them that has shifted. And
mhm,
so like my mom left and I stepped into the mother role. I was very young when that happened. So I learned really young to take care of my dad
yeah,
because I didn't have a mother. So I was one, I took care of myself so that I wasn't a burden to him and he didn't leave me. One, two, I became the mother that I didn't have,
mhm,
right? So in his instance, the only thing that came to me after when I was listening to you talk after I said what I said was he kind of took care of his mom and sisters.
yes,
And when he was injured, he couldn't barely take care of himself, let alone me or anyone
yes. And
else.
he can't shed the mother and the sister, so you had to
No,
get
he
shed.
can't. So I was the one that got shut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex, it was a problem every time he would go back to Texas. He would come back and he was a little bitch every single time, right?
Really?
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
Now I think
Yes.
he was, now I've met him, obviously. I thought he was a little feminine.
Hmm. And
I
he
was
would
actually
come back and he would
surprised.
be even more feminine. He would be so wounded from these trips and stepping in and listening to his mother gossip and him falling into even more feminine energy. Yeah, and it was always this idea so for him, what I always heard was this idea that like maybe I didn't hear it verbally, but it was the idea that like I don't want to take care of another woman. I don't want to
I
emotionally.
can see that from him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could
And
see that from him.
it was so beyond toxic. But when he would come back from any trip to see her, it was it was like volume 100. Everything else he would, we went to like a couples therapy session and we had agreements on what to work on both sides. And he was unable to fulfill his, which was stupid simple. And I can even state what that one was, which was one, he was to plan one date a month. When
Should
you
be
are
one date a week.
it should be,
Yeah.
but he has his son half time, blah, blah, blah. So trying to plan something, and we even went through examples of what to plan. In July came, and sure enough, he was at Mama's for a week. And when he came back, it was the he didn't even put in the effort. He didn't even communicate that he was exhausted. There was just no date planned,
Yeah.
nothing. And it was just this complete and utter lack of effort that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
I can't do no effort, dude. That I'm so over that. Like I have always been the one that put in all the effort and I just won't do it anymore. That was after because I was at your house at the end of June.
Mhm.
I got here July 1st.
Yeah, and June was glorious. June, that man showed up like I've never like he started out strong. That first 60, 90 days, he was perfection. June, he was on fire. He was doing everything right. Um, but what we expect will always project. I had that feeling. He was going back to Texas. I was like, oh man, here we go. We're gonna go in this cycle again. So shame
Yeah.
on me for assuming that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he definitely did, right? And And please know I'm not saying anything too poorly about his mother. I think she's a wonderful woman and did the very best she could.
It's just their dynamic.
Um, but I also think she's a very unhappy woman who likes
Yeah.
to gossip with her son about her unhappy marriage. And I actually asked him at one point, I was like, who in your reality do you actually see as a couple to emulate? And he couldn't give me an answer. That circle of five is so important,
It
right?
is.
Like who the five people that you hang out with the most, show me who they are, and I can tell you your future. I don't remember who said that, right? But it wasn't watching him be around, loving, committed individuals. His quote unquote best friend was constantly cheating on his wife, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all these different pieces to it. Um, Actually, I don't know if it was his best friend, but like it was very, yeah, she knew about it. And just like to be in acceptance of that. There's one thing to love and accept people for who they are, but your inner circle is so powerful. So that was a tangent,
Well, I
but
mean, it just had me thinking because, like, going back to that guy, it's hard for I still I think I still have a lot of hurt over it. I still have a lot of love for him. He One of the other things that we bonded over was, my last marriage ended because there was no emotional support and safety for the continuous tower moments that were happening in my life between my grandmother dying, my father dying, everything in my life shifting, almost, having a stroke, all those things. Like I went through thing after thing after thing, and he left me alone in my pain and did not do anything to financially help, physically help, emotionally help, and just left me alone to, slowly die. And in his case, it was his ex-wife, or his wife at the time, whose father died. And according now, this is obviously what he says, right? But he tried to get her to let him in and to support, and she shut down and shut off. And then, it ended up, they went separate ways because of that. And what he told me, I believed him based on the things that he said, because you wouldn't know to do some of those things or say some of those things unless you actually know what it means to be emotionally supportive. So the more and more we talk about this, the more and more it just reinforces the foundation that this was not, it never was about me. It was never my fault. I didn't do anything.
correct.
It's mainly that he's designed to be the support emotionally, physically, financially, and two of those things he couldn't do. That's how he would, that's his programming. It makes
Yeah.
me really sad for him, sad for us, you know?
He'll learn. I think the divine masculine is going through a very rude awakening, especially over the next 5 years.
Oh my
That's going to be
God.
really the
Yes.
first wave, right? There's obviously awakened divine masculine men everywhere, but I think they were mostly either went through a rude awakening like we did, or they were supported with families with a mother or a father or both, or,
They're not
particular
easy to
teachers.
find.
I think they're everywhere.
Well, I haven't found them.
I really think they're everywhere. I just think they're just like us, where it's like, I'm not looking in this
Yeah.
moment. Like fate will put me in, right, the same room as her. And yeah, but
I have a love-hate relationship with that saying that it's just going
okay.
to find you. You know, I I believe that there's still action on our part that we have to take.
Like what?
Well, you can't be sitting, the fucker ain't gonna knock at your door when you're, I mean, it could, but for the most part, if you're staying in your house and you're not doing anything.
Well, that's the live your life piece though. And
Yeah.
that's what I tell my clients all the time is like, yeah, what are it's that if when program, right? When I have the boyfriend, I'll go on the Mediterranean cruise. Why are you waiting?
Thank you for joining us, my loves. This is a 3-part series, so please come back and join us next week as this conversation continues. Hey, thanks for listening.
This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.